Well, hello everybody. This is Menoth John, and I've been asked a lot of questions over the years as far as how do you go about starting up a podcast, and how do you go about getting your podcast from your recording stage over to the point where you are ready to put it up on the internet and all that kind of stuff. So, I thought I'd take a time here, and I just got a message from Dow Dark of Advanced Maneuvers, who, if you haven't checked out Advanced Maneuvers on YouTube, you should. They do some of the best War Machine hordes battle reports out there, and this video is being produced kind of for him. But I'm going to put it out onto my normal stream at youtube.com/menothjohn to kind of, for everybody out there, I can just kind of direct them to this, and hopefully this will be a helpful tool. It's going to show some of the things that I do in the course of creating a podcast to help you get your stuff out on the internet, because more stuff out on the internet equals more awesome for everybody. So working on it right now. So basically what I do is my show, Painting with Menoth John, which is on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on youtube.com/menothjohn, is I do all of my recording up onto the YouTube through a piece of software called OBS. And I'm going to switch this over here to my main screen capture, and I'm going to bring OBS onto the screen so that you all can see it. And what you see here is it's a piece of software that allows you to basically have a small recording studio inside of your computer. So in this you can set different sources. In this case I'm pulling from my main monitor, and you can see that the sound is recording, and it gives you information on what your frames per second are and your bandwidth and all that kind of good stuff. So this is what I use to actually do the recording on the episode. What this video is more about is the post-production work. Okay, the post-production work on this for my show basically takes the file that is created by OBS, which is in a .flv, I believe, is the code for it, and it is a Flash source file. And what we need to do, if we're going to put this out as an audio podcast, is we're going to need to convert that into a format that is that is a little bit friendlier for audio processing type software. So we're going to move OBS off to the side here, because that's really not all that important for what we're talking about. And I'm going to bring up a piece of software that I found that I'm really, really happy with, and that is a free FLV to MP3 converter. And you can see there that it has the website www.convertaudiofree.com. And the reason I like this is that it is a standalone application that you install on your computer, and it allows you to take a .flv file, and then it'll allow you to convert it to AVI, MP4, or MP3. And MP3 is the one that we're interested in. And so what I will do is I will click on this little box right here and point it to where one of my video files is. And we'll look at this one right here as an example. And that's the file format that it shows up after you created an OBS file. And you can see here that you select MP3, and then what it will do is you hit the convert button, and what that will do is it'll go through and it will convert that file from FLV, which is not very useful for doing any kind of audio processing, and it basically rips all the video out of it and lets you end up with an audio file. Now this only takes just a few seconds here. This is part of a pre-ramble file from one of my Sunday night shows, so it's not terribly long. That's why I picked this one, because it wouldn't take that long to run. So let's kind of ad-lib here a little bit while we're waiting for this to finish, and then I will show you what my next step in creating this is. And honestly, this is probably the most important part of any of the things that I do in the post-production for my show. So we can close this. This has done its work. And we're going to open up another free piece of software called Audacity. And Audacity is a kind of the standard as far as doing free audio recording and free audio processing out there. It's got a lot of flexibility, and if you use Audacity properly, it can be the difference between having a good sounding podcast or an excellent sounding podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the file. We'll go File, Open, and then I'm going to point it to where my videos are, because I know that's where my that last program I was just talking about dumps the file. And you can see here, this is the MP3 format. So I'm going to select that one, and it'll read it in. And then getting the sound to sound really pretty good is a not that many step process. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight back in here, and then we're going to do a view, zoom to selection. And what we're looking for is an area of dead air. So I'll select this little area of dead air here, and I will do an effect, noise removal, get noise profile. Now, generally, when you start an audio recording or start a podcast, you want to leave a good chunk of dead air at the very beginning of it, because the larger this noise removal sample profile is, the better chance you're going to have of getting good background noise removal on your audio file. So here we go. That's set. Click there. Sorry about that. I had to cough and I just turned the mic off for a second. Recovering from surgery. So we'll do a Control A, which is select all. And then we'll go through and we'll run the effect, noise removal again. And we'll just run that. Well, this takes, I'm sorry, this is going to be kind of hard because I'm struggling here with some fluid in my lungs, actually. And there you go. Okay, so the second step, after you got the noise, is we want to sound smarter. And so we're going to truncate the silence. And I compress to 75%. And there we go. The next step is to do a compressor. Run that through there. Wow, I'm sorry, folks, that there hasn't been more chit-chat on this thing, because I've been sitting here basically dying trying to talk here. And so we got that. And then after we've done the compressor, we're going to re-amplify. And the reason to do that is to help kind of make a very consistent audio sound for your feed. You don't want too many highs and too many lows. The compressor takes care of that. But you also, by re-amplifying it, as people listen to episode after episode of yours, that it will always be at the same volume, so that if they're listening to them in sequence, they won't have to adjust their volume every time a new show comes on. So that's important. I mean, because nothing sucks worse than driving down the road and all of a sudden your radio's blaring. So this is the waveform that you end up with, and then from here you do an export. And you put on here the your name, and we'll just call it test. And then you can have the chance to put in all the metadata, Mouth John test. And this is where I put on, you know, any of the information. I keep track of the track number and all that kind of stuff. But then it'll export it. Wow, this talking stuff is killing me. And so there we go. Just wait for this to finish. One thing you'll notice is that I'm basically recording this at I'm encoding it at 96 kbps. That is plenty good for an audio podcast of a spoken word. And I think if you record it at 128, which is pretty much lossless, the files actually get pretty big, and you end up really not getting that much quality for what you're paying for in file size, which becomes important at the next step, where we're going to upload this thing to somewhere for it to exist, so people can find it as a stream. And in the export audio, you can come down here to options, and that's where you're gonna set the MP3 options. And 96 kbps is just fine. Okay, so We've at this point we're done with Audacity, and close out of that. Now, this is where you end up with some options, and the way that I do it is I use actually Libsyn, and Libsyn is kind of an industry standard. They you do have to pay for this. Their plans are not expensive, and they've been doing this for a long time. They've been around for a long time. So it makes it. There's a lot of instructions on here on how to basically you set this up for an RSS feed for iTunes and websites and stats and stuff like that. It's one of the most highly integrated services that there is. It's what I use, and I think my hosting is something I can't remember how much it is per month, but it's not too bad, and very reliable. I've never had any problem with it. And I'm going to quick log in off camera here so that you can see what the kinds of things you get here. But it gives you some nice statistics. It shows you how much storage you have left. It resets every month, so this your plan dictates how much content you can store to it per month. But it's not like your episodes go away at the end of the month. You end up refreshing it. So, and it tells you what your downloads were like. Like here at this point, I had 669 downloads that one day. And you can come here to the show stats, and it'll show you how many total you had, what month they were in, and all that kind of stuff. And my show does pretty okay for me. I mean, heck, 1,100 to 1,300 downloads a month. I can't argue with that. So that's Libsyn. Another alternative is archive.org, not to be archive.com, archive.org. And what this basically you're looking for is a service that after you upload your file will allow you to have a permalink that you'll be able to send people to when you do a post. And so this is another place you can store the file. So what you're doing is you're taking your file that you just made and you're storing it somewhere so that it can set up an RSS feed. And that's what iTunes and what other podcatchers need is an RSS feed in order to be able to have this information. The next thing that I do is I then will make a blog post over at museonminis.com. And there's a thing within WordPress where you can put the permalink to show kind of where the file is, so that iTunes can go find it. So let's see here. Let's go back to Libsyn, and I will log back into Libsyn here real quick. Sorry about this audio, guys. I'm just dying over here. Turns out getting a tube snaked down your neck while they put you under general anesthesia screws up your lungs. And so when we look at the content, we look at previously published, you can come here to I believe it's this linked one here. And the one you're looking for here is this direct download URL. And that's what you're looking for. This is essentially the RSS link that you want to put in on a blog post onto WordPress or something like that will allow it to find it. And then Libsyn also makes it really nice because they have, for destinations, basically you can set up different destinations and stuff like that as far as here's your RSS feed that people would need to enter into their iTunes in order to find it. And so this is then when you go through the process with iTunes, this is the RSS feed that you're looking for. And I'm not going to go through all of the instructions on how to set this up with Libsyn and all that kind of stuff, because that actually is very well explained on the Libsyn site itself. So it's very easy to follow through. I mean, God, I'm not an IT person by any stretch of the imagination, and I was able to do this on my own. So I highly recommend you take a look at this. That's why I go with Libsyn. They will help you set all this stuff up. And but ultimately, that's what you're looking for, is this HTTP with the RSS on the end of it, and that's what Libsyn gives you. And then you can set that up with iTunes, and then every time that you publish add a new episode, essentially, iTunes will pick this up off of the RSS feed and will enter it in, and then people will be able, if they're subscribed to your podcast, it will come down and automatically. So essentially, for Dowdark, the key steps, if you already are at an MP3 file stage, is make sure you edited it well, that you like the sound and how it is. Then you can kind of, maybe you've already gotten past all the Audacity stuff. But what you're going to need to do is probably set up an account like this with Libsyn or with Archive. I'm not sure how Archive works terribly well because I never got very far with them. I just decided to go with Libsyn, who's kind of been there since day one with the podcast community. And go ahead and set up your account. And then what you have to do is on iTunes, if you want to be on iTunes, they have a set submission process that you go through. It takes a couple weeks to get approved onto iTunes, but it's not that bad. And probably best if you are at all concerned about any kind of language or anything like that, is to go ahead with the an explicit tag right off the get-go. So I hope this has been helpful. The key things are when you're making a podcast is make sure that your sound doesn't suck. And you get that with a decent microphone. Not an expensive microphone, just a good microphone. Like this Audio Technica one that I'm working on right now. And it's an ATR 2100-USB. It's a hell of a nice little microphone. And then make sure you do good editing using using Audacity. And then, get yourself up on the internet here with the Libsyn or something like that. Also, Dowdark, talk to the folks over at Muson Minis. They're wonderful folks to work with, and they'd probably be happier than heck to host your podcast. So, and for the rest of you out there, have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.